Part 1. The Raid That Changed History. Have you ever wondered how a single attack could change the course of history? Imagine waking up on a quiet summer morning, hearing only the sound of waves and birds, believing the day would be just like any other. Then, without warning, strange ships appear on the horizon. Their sails grow larger with every passing minute. The men aboard are unlike anyone you've ever seen. They carry axes, swords, and round shields, and they are heading straight toward you. Within hours, one peaceful island would become the scene of a massacre, and all of Europe would begin to fear a new enemy. This is the story of the Viking raid that terrified an entire continent. The year was 793. Europe was deeply religious, and monasteries were among the richest places in the land. They held gold, silver, precious books, and sacred relics collected over generations. Yet despite their wealth, they had almost no protection. Monks devoted their lives to prayer, not war. Most believed that no one would dare attack a holy place. One of the most famous monasteries stood on a small island off the northeast coast of England. It was called Lindisfarne. Known as the Holy Island, it attracted pilgrims from across the kingdom. Its quiet stone buildings overlooked the sea, and life there followed the same peaceful rhythm every day. But far beyond the horizon, another world existed. Across the cold waters of Scandinavia lived the Vikings. They were skilled sailors, fearless warriors, and expert shipbuilders. Their longships were unlike anything Europe had ever seen. Light, fast, and able to travel both across the open sea and along shallow rivers, they allowed Viking warriors to appear without warning and disappear just as quickly. No one on Lindisfarne expected what happened next. On the morning of June 8th, dark shapes emerged from the mist. At first, they looked like ordinary fishing boats, but as they came closer, people noticed the carved dragon heads at the front of the ships and rows of armed men gripping their weapons. There was no time to prepare. The Vikings rushed ashore with terrifying speed. They broke down the monastery's doors, cut down anyone who resisted, and seized everything of value: gold crosses, silver cups, decorated manuscripts, and sacred treasures disappeared into their ships. Some monks were killed where they stood. Others were dragged away as prisoners and sold into slavery. For the survivors, it felt like the end of the world. The attack lasted only a short time, but its impact was enormous. When the Vikings sailed away, they left behind silence, smoke, and destruction. The once peaceful monastery had become a place of death. News of the raid spread rapidly across England. Many believed it was a punishment from God. Chronicles described terrifying signs in the sky before the attack, and people feared even worse disasters were coming. But they were wrong about one thing. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of an age that would change Europe forever. Part 2. Europe begins to fear the Vikings. The raid on Lindisfarne shocked Europe, but for the Vikings, it was only the first of many. The wealth they carried back to Scandinavia proved that the distant Christian kingdoms were rich, vulnerable, and completely unprepared. News of the successful raid spread quickly among Viking leaders, and soon more ships began crossing the North Sea. Year after year, the attacks became more frequent. Small coastal villages woke to the sight of longships appearing through the morning fog. Churches were looted, monasteries burned, and settlements that had stood peacefully for generations were destroyed in a matter of hours. The Vikings rarely stayed to fight large armies. Instead, they struck fast, took what they wanted, and disappeared before help could arrive. Their greatest advantage was speed. Viking longships were engineering masterpieces for their time. They could sail across rough seas, travel up rivers, and even be carried over short distances on land. This allowed Viking warriors to reach places that no enemy expected. A town that felt safe one day could find itself under attack the next. Kings struggled to stop them. Most European armies were slow to gather, and by the time soldiers reached the coast, the raiders had already vanished beyond the horizon. Every successful attack made the Vikings bolder. They were no longer seen as ordinary pirates. They had become a terrifying force that seemed impossible to predict or defeat. Over the following decades, Viking raids spread far beyond England. They struck Ireland, Scotland, France, and even reached the great city of Paris. Some Viking leaders demanded huge payments in silver to spare towns from destruction. Others chose to stay, building settlements that would eventually grow into powerful communities. What had begun as simple raids slowly turned into conquest. The attack on Lindisfarne marked the beginning of what historians now call the Viking Age. For nearly 3 centuries, Viking warriors reshaped the history of Europe. They founded new kingdoms, opened trade routes across continents, and left their mark on the cultures and languages of many nations. Today, more than 1,200 years later, the story of that single raid still fascinates historians. It wasn't the largest battle in history, nor the bloodiest, yet its psychological impact was unlike anything Europe had experienced. It shattered the belief that even the holiest places were safe and announced the arrival of a new era. Sometimes, history doesn't change because of a massive war or the fall of an empire. Sometimes, it changes because a few ships appear on the horizon on a quiet morning, carrying warriors the world has never seen before. The raid on Lindisfarne was more than an attack. It was the moment Europe first learned to fear the Vikings, and the beginning of one of history's most legendary ages.